Sup Shredders, my name is Logan aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Patrons video today that I'm making for Wudi as part of their custom monthly music review. And if we switch over to here, we have ourselves a track on the screen rather than an album from Tokyo Incidents, and a track that we're going to be listening through today is titled Overdose. So we're going to listen through it from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. It should also be noted that we have lyrics for this, which I'll put on the screen. I think they're in Japanese, so I won't be able to understand them, but that's okay. It's great with that Hammond organ, the keys, bass and drums. Fascinating chord progressions. I love the sound design, the different guitar parts sprinkled all over the stereo field. There's a phenomenal dynamic range as well. Tashina Ringo's vocals in this track, you know, she's kind of like whispering, very quiet, gradually building up that intensity, but not too much. We don't know what's going to happen next. Guitars are pretty though. I like how starry the leads are. I like how the bass rumbles in the deep there. Disappears, great noise gating. Repetition there of that progression we had previously in the bridge. Filthy guitar tone, dude. Oh, holy shit. That was wild, man. That was absolutely wild. I did not expect her to go up in intensity like that. That vocal fry was so visceral, wasn't it? Like, I'm blown away by that. That was a stunning performance, and that is incredible vocal technique, control there. The music kind of hints at a dissonance there with the harmonies and various interspersed melodies there, and that bass line kind of ruminating on itself there. And it's just ferocious, though. Incredible development there. I think that with this track, the music's kind of given me a lot of context that I would have potentially gotten from the vocals, you know, lyrics. Because this is the conclusion of my review of this track by Tokyo Incidents, titled Overdose. What do I think this track is about? From what I can tell with the music, it starts really quietly, and I can imagine someone talking about the way they feel when maybe they are taking a dose of something and how sweet and how good that is. The music, the way that Sheena Ringo sings in the beginning, is very sweet, as if they're almost nostalgic for how it makes them feel. There is a sweetness there that carries over to the extensions on the chord progressions, the brightness of the different key and other parts there, the quiet charisma of the jazzy influences within there. They're fantastic, and I think the song is basically about, especially at the end where it just becomes really ferocious and thrashy with those really incredible sounding distorted guitars there. They're so furious and frustrated sounding with a really trashy distortion. I mean trashy in a good way. Like, they're not trying to have tight, well constructed kind of rhythm tones. They're trying to make it as scratchy and as edgy as they need it to be able to match the tenacity and the temerity shown by Sheena during that scream, you know, before that last interlude section there, that big build there, the very thin top of the bell curve, where for most of the track we're kind of like this, and there's something, you know, it's incredible stuff. I'm really proud of what the song is. I think that they may have overdosed, and afterwards they're just talking about it as if the moment is past, and it was a bit too much for them to sort of handle, but they're back to thinking about when they're going to get their next hit. That's basically what I think that track is about. I could be wrong, but let me know in the comments if you know what this track is about, because I cannot understand the Japanese, and it's something I'd like to get a better idea of. But anyways, I think that you know, in addition to all that, this track it's great in the sense that Sheena's vocals are phenomenal. This is one of the best performances from them that I've heard. It's great to hear their range there, from the kind of quiet sort of whispered stuff at the beginning to how intense she becomes later on, especially in that scream, that last visceral part, and that like build during the chorus beforehand. It's wonderful stuff, and it shows her range as a singer. There's a great array of emotions expressed, I think, from the quiet sadness or like the hope in the beginning to the frustration, anger, and rage that occur in that scream there at the end. And it's fantastic to see all those flow through within a 3-minute track. It's phenomenal use of time. It's again an example of how great Sheena is as a singer, but I think it's also important not to understate the importance of the rest of the band, because in regards to the track itself, the accompaniment was phenomenal. It was an absolute wonder to behold, hearing all these really intricate bass lines, these wonderful drum grooves, the extension with the guitar parts there going from the cleaner elements to the thrashy stuff going later on with the heavy distorted parts. It's not like a thick, heavy, sludgy tone. It's like a thin kind of, it's just a wall of sound at that point. It overwhelms you, and maybe even going to some sort of single coil lead stuff with some higher frets there to really sort of make it kind of sound beautiful, even in the insanity of it. And like, you know, with the keys and other elements as well, like the organ that we had or whatever, the vibrato going on there, that was wonderful. It brought me back to a soulsy kind of era like the 70s, etc., combined with like punk and sort of alternative, even some grunge elements there. It was wonderful. There were lots of different styles incorporated with the sophistication, you know, those extensions combined with the fluidity of the actual performance itself and all the instruments. And it created this theme, which initially sounded so like downbeat and kind of together, like they had their shit together, you know. They sounded like they were totally in control of it, and then suddenly it smashes into you like a wall of bricks. It smashes into you, and you just have this big wall of sound, as I previously mentioned, where all the instruments come together and this furor, and it's incredible music, really. The theme showcases as a wider variety as Sheena does on the mic, and I think there's a wonderful connection between how the music sounded and how Sheena sounded. The story, whatever that is, I presume if it's got anything to do with the music, makes sense there, and I loved listening to it. It's great music. I also like the fact that we had a shorter form track here. I think it was wonderful use of time there. Absolutely no filler, not a note out of place. It's very difficult, by the way, just before you go into the studio production. I know I haven't really spoken about like what chords were used here. There were some parallel majors or minors used here that aren't sort of usually used, but they're typical in like jazz and certain genres like progressive stuff. And it takes a lot of care and finesse to know how to put those intricate sort of melodies together with the guitar lines, with the keys, with the bass, exploring the fretboard. And so that's something that I've always appreciated about Tokyo Incidents, is not just their ability to write fantastic music, but also their fundamental understandings in music theory as well, knowing what works and what doesn't and what rules to break. and they can put it into a studio or a live performance, and it goes hard, man. Finally, the studio recording, the mixing and mastering, you know, it's sensational. I was happier with this one than I have been with previous works from Sheena. Sometimes I think there's a lack of dynamic range that kills the song, it kills the vibe of it, but I think here they knew to play the instruments more delicately in the early sections to really account for how furious it gets in that latter stage. And I think there were no issues with dynamic range of this round as far as I'm concerned. Very happy with it. There were noticeable perceived differences in the loudness there. It led various changes in intensity. Sheena's voice was not super duper present in the mix, but it was there. Like, she wasn't boosted above or anything like that. She also potentially could have been a little bit louder in the mix, like 0.25 dB, but I'm guessing they wanted it as tight as they could do. The guitars, bass, drums, keys, etc. were balanced nicely as well, both in the stereo field and in the frequency spectrum. There were no weird resonant frequencies there. The leveling in general was good though. There were nice little bits of automation of the panning of the various instruments, although that could be more like a guitar tone or an effect thing, like they have stereo delays, etc. that they can use to get the music to kind of swim around the place. And, you know, it was nice and loud without pumping. And all in all, I think this is one of my favorite Tokyo Incident tracks. So thank you to Wudi for suggesting this for the SP Patrons video. And thank you for watching this review. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please do go show us some love via the various social medias and their Spotify page. And stay cool and stay safe. And please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as either help more than ever with all the crazy stuff going on in the world. And I'll catch you in the next SP Patrons video. Spiderhands out.